In 1992, a bizarre recording took the world by storm. When people heard it, their hair stood on end, because the sound was coming from 12,000 meters underground. What was on the tape? Soviet geologist Asagov says, "As a convinced atheist, I don't believe in spiritualism. But as a scientist, he couldn't come up with a rational explanation." It turned out that on May 24th, 1970, thousands of Soviet scientists arrived on the Kola Peninsula in neighboring Norway to begin a great project, the Earth Telescope Program. In short, to dig up the Earth. At the beginning of the project, everything went well. But when the borehole reaches a depth of 12,263 meters, something goes wrong. Shortly thereafter, the project team pulled out. The hole was sealed with screws as big as your arm. A 20-mile radius was declared a restricted military zone. All living and flying creatures are forbidden to approach. The Soviets claimed they were strapped for cash and suspended the program indefinitely. It wasn't until 1992, when a declassified document was released to the public, that the secrets of 20 years ago were finally revealed. Researchers had discovered a vast space 12,000 meters underground. It was filled with smoke. There was even the figure of a monster with two horns walking through the fog. Even more bizarre, the drill's heat-resistant microphone emitted a scream that sounded like the screams of countless people. It was a terrifying sound. The researchers abandoned their plans and fled. Not surprisingly, the light bulb found the recording. Again, this recording may be disturbing. Non-combatants should evacuate. This incident was later made into the movie Chorus Depot. Christmas, 1908. Lotzi received a 911 call. Her superiors told her there was an anomaly at Quora Base. Dozens of researchers had disappeared for no apparent reason. The few who remain are infected with a mysterious virus. As a doctor of microbiology, Lacey was the first to go. He went underground to get a sample of the virus. But just as the plane touched down, there was a bizarre sight. In the snow, a researcher stumbles towards them, a grenade in his hand. The soldiers realized that something was wrong and had to shoot. Despite being shot several times, he stood up again, ignoring the pain. He detonated the grenade. Shrapnel tore into Lotzi's face. What had this explorer been through? Lotzi walked over to the broken body, took some flesh and blood to study. But here's the strange thing. The blood was originally liquid, but the next second it turned to powder. Lotzi was more than sure that there was an unknown virus in the base. She immediately rushed to the research workers to collect the blood. One of the workers even told Lotzi, "While you still have time, hurry back to your family. It's a mess down there." Without waiting for Lotzi to think, the captain just told her, "Hurry back to the base." Shortly after, they entered the elevator to the underground. They inserted the key and punched in the code. The elevator started slowly, but as it went down faster and faster, Lotzi clenched her fists in anxiety. At that very moment, Dr. Bass clearly had a plan of his own. He waited for the right moment. He quickly unbuckled his seatbelt. Then he turned off the elevator's speed limiter. Then he alone put on his oxygen mask. The next second, the unrestrained elevator began its rapid descent. Immediately, high-pressure air rushes into the car. Everyone began to have difficulty breathing, until they fainted from lack of oxygen. Only the doctor watched calmly from the sidelines. Luckily, a few seconds later, the elevator reached its destination. The doctor stole the key and left. When they came to their senses, they stepped out of the elevator. They realized that this was just a living area. The well is only 5,000 meters deep. To get to the bottom, you have to take another elevator. But the key to the elevator was stolen by the doctor. The soldiers searched every nook and cranny, but found no trace of it. All they found was a doctor and a circuit engineer. Lotzi immediately ran blood tests on them. After a quick examination, he found nothing unusual. At that moment, the doctor suddenly appeared from behind and yelled, "We can't get the virus out." Then he jumped into the elevator, straight to the bottom of the mine. "There's no way out. You can't take the elevator." They had to go down a welded walkway, and that's when it happened. Lotzi sensed something was wrong, and sure enough, the alarm went off. That means someone's at the door, but the program couldn't be stopped. What happened next? Lotzi and the others were in shock. This woman came out from 10,000 meters underground, but when she came out, she was delirious. The doctors rushed to examine her. Here's the strange thing. Her body temperature was 50 degrees Celsius. Then the doctors took off her shirt. The horrible wounds on her back were exposed for all to see. The two men gagged as they watched. Lotzi carefully picked up a handful of spores under the microscope and examined them. It was found to be a parasite. It was multiplying wildly. Soon the whole lens was covered with them. There was red light coming out of it. And then Rashi saw the same red light coming out of the woman's hand. She immediately ran for help, but it was too late. The woman seemed to know that something was wrong with her body. Her fingers began to break in strange ways. Then she started banging on the glass, trying to break out of the room. Shortly after, Lotzi returned with the soldiers. She immediately noticed that something was wrong with the room. The walls were covered with rotting spores, and even more horrifying, the woman who was fine a moment ago had turned into a puddle of liquid. Only one eye was left. Lotzi immediately stopped anyone from entering. But just as Lotzi was taking samples, the two jumping spores suddenly burst into flames. It sprayed directly into the soldier's face. The next moment he fell to the ground, covering his face in pain. Panicking, Lotzi luckily found a mask. For a while, the scene was awfully quiet. Then suddenly, a figure emerged from the mist. It was the doctor who had stayed behind. She walked toward Lotzi with a blank face, and then her ribs were ripped out. It seemed the spores had infected her body and tried to attack Lassie. In the nick of time, the people outside opened the metal door and sterilized her entire body. At the same time, a huge explosion came from below. The doctor tried to prevent them from escaping the virus. He sabotaged the passage. We have to find him and get the elevator key. The soldiers wanted to go to the deepest part of the tunnel. But here's the scary part. The sound of heavy gunfire came from inside. It was as if a monster had attacked. It didn't take long. The soldiers who went in were all wiped out. The only survivor was completely disfigured. He looked nervously behind him, as if something was following him. He wiped the back of his neck in despair. Lotzi quickly closed the iron door. But the next moment, there was a loud bang outside the door. It looked like the monster had come out after them. They could only make it to the elevator. The maintenance staff had temporarily short-circuited the wiring. The elevator started successfully. The next moment, the elevator plummeted down at infinite speed. Lotzi and the others struggled under the pressure. The maintenance man finds the right moment to open the elevator's damper lock. The elevator stops just short of the bottom floor. But as they stepped out of the elevator, there's nothing on the whole floor. No infections, no bodies. There were just pictures of the 8 researchers on the wall. While Lotzi wondered, the maintenance man seemed to have found something. What is 10,000 meters underground? A man strikes a match. He saw a terrible sight. In front of him was a wall of people. 8 scientists are trapped together. Their panicked expressions remain. What monster had attacked them? Lotzi seemed determined. Must get the elevator key to find out what kind of monster it was. But the bald man took her equipment to investigate the situation alone. But strangely enough, the 3 of them waited for a long time. But it didn't come back. Lotzi had a bad feeling. Without waiting for the other two to react, she went directly into the mine. She opened the last iron door. She put on her mask and rushed out, but she had not taken 2 steps. The heat made her sick, but to survive, she had to keep going. It wasn't long before she found a fallen bald man in the middle of the bridge, but he wasn't breathing. Fortunately, he had found the elevator key. Lotzi took the key and started to go back, but the mist from the mask blocked her vision. She had no choice. She had to pull the mask off. Her vision was immediately restored. She finally saw the monster 10,000 feet underground. Lotzi knew she couldn't stay long. She quickly fled inside the house. She left only the giant monster, who watched coldly. After getting the key, they returned to the living quarters. But the strange thing was, the soldiers who were here a moment ago were all gone. They were left with a broken landscape. Just when they were puzzled, a monster suddenly appeared behind them and attacked the bearded man. The scary thing is, the whole monster was made of people. Just as the monster was about to find Lotzi, Lotzi ran straight to the refrigerator. She found a bucket of ice water. Lotzi had a plan, because monsters can't survive cold. In a moment of desperation, she accepted the ice bucket challenge to lower her body temperature. And as expected, Lotzi's hypothermia didn't get the monster's attention. She tried to run away. Suddenly, she saw a face under her belly open its eyes. And the next thing she knew, they started screaming. It even broke through the wall. It found Lotzi running away and slowly attacked her. Luckily, at the last minute, Lotzi escaped into the elevator. Just as the monster was about to break through the door, the elevator started without a problem. Just as they thought they had escaped, they realized there was another infected person in the corner, still spewing deadly spores from his mouth. An enclosed car is the perfect place for germs to breed. Lotzi knew he wasn't wearing a mask. Chances are he's already infected by the spores. To prevent the permafrost supervirus from infecting the world, Lotzi decided not to go back up. but the maintenance man, fearing for his life, fought otherwise. He kept the elevator running to stay alive. He even tried to kill Lassie, but what he didn't expect was a soldier pulled out a broken bomb and killed the maintenance man on the spot. Then Lassie struggled and hit the brakes, but the elevator didn't stop. Someone on the ground must have taken control of the elevator. Lassie tried to contact them, but before she could press the number, she fainted, and then two soldiers took her away. When she regained consciousness, Lassie used the bumps in the car to remove the grenade from the soldier's belt. She forced the car to stop. She pulled the grenade out in front of everyone